Hey, everyone. Welcome. It's Isaiah, and this is another one of the Isaiah's Inspiring Evenings podcast episodes. This is actually part of a series. The series is called Exploring Relationship Red Flags, and I am with this series. For this series, I am having an amazing guest, the incredible Ree Pearson. Hi, Ree.
Hello.
And so we are. Discussing the early warning signs of and we've been discussing more than the early warning signs actually, but anyway, of unhealthy relationship dynamics, the psychology behind red flag behaviors, and how we can interrupt patterns before they escalate into harm. So before we go a little too deep into today's topic, which is behavioral patterns and personality traits, we let me introduce a little bit Ree Pearson. So I'm going to read her bio because that's the easiest way. So Ree lives overlooking the sea and describes herself as being on the edge. A police officer for 27 years, with focus on policy and how the police deal with partner abuse, Ree specializes in domestic abuse, stalking, and safeguarding. Her post-policing career has continued with directorships with several community interest companies, all focused on those specialisms. Ree's book, Be Kind, No Excuses, is a guide for teenagers and parents to raise awareness of the red flag behaviors that are a precursor to the abusive behaviors in Her relationships. Her mission is to flip the discussion on violence against women and girls and talk about the real problem, the majority of abuse being perpetrated by men who are violent towards others, women, men, and children. Be Kind, No Excuses is also now a community interest company. And Ree is also the co-creator of Wow Women Only Wellness Ltd, which creates safe spaces for women and girls to come together and step into their power through learning that self-care is not selfish. This, as I was saying, is episode 8 of a series of 9, so we're almost there. If you haven't listened to the previous ones, or if you're listening to this in the future, just know that you have another many episodes to listen to. So, behavioral patterns. There are some things that are repeated, like pattern in abusive um, personalities and the way they act. I would go for jealousy, I'm guessing, the first one,
Mm.
or this obsession that they make, and it must start. If tell me about that, but if I hear it correctly, it starts as it presents itself as an incredible amount of love.
Yes. So that's called at the beginning of a relationship with somebody who's going to abuse you, there will be a period of love bombing, what
Oh,
we call
love
love.
bombing.
Yeah. So they do everything, they're wonderful, they do the things. And this actually, that pattern continues because even after they've done something or some things that are abusive, they will then love bomb again.
Hmm.
So at the beginning, they love bomb, you've just met, you're dating, they do all the things. They say all the right things, they do all the right things. But jealousy is a question actually. You know, you mentioned earlier about how people learn to walk by mimicking their
Yeah.
parents. Um, I think emotional dysregulation can often come from how things were dealt with in the house. Like
Mm.
if anger isn't resolved and it's constantly under the surface bubbling
Hmm.
away. And I think for me, emotional abuse is actually physical abuse, but on a cellular level.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh,
I
that's
read,
beautiful.
I read recently that 80% of women, no, 80% of the people who have what is the word I'm looking for?
Deficiency.
Like
Oh,
sort of like illnesses like ME, fibromyalgia,
yeah.
that those, well, I can't think of the word. Look at my
Sorry, I'll
um,
finish the sentence. I'll
80%
find the
of the
word.
people who have that are female.
Autoimmune diseases.
Autoimmune diseases, yeah, which is
80% are
interesting.
female.
80% are women. Yeah.
Wow.
which just doesn't
And
work.
just to
Just like the
remind everyone
science, like, that's mad, isn't it?
what an autoimmune disease is, it's your body attacking itself, right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
to
So when I talk to a lot of women who are, because I mostly work with women, I do work with some men, but I mostly work with women because women are the biggest group of
hmm
victims of abusive relationships. So many of the women I speak to have actually got fibromyalgia. Arthritis is way up there.
mm mm
Arthritis in the hands is way up
mm
there because it's
mm
like,
mm. Yeah.
so yeah, what was the question? Jealousy.
Endometriosis, yeah.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that everybody who's got that illness has been in a relationship with an
Of
abusive
course
person.
not.
It's just
hmm
there's a
hmm
correlation between the two
hmm
things. I was just talking to a lady this morning who told me that she had lived years ago with a man who used to really beat her up. But her family, her parents were lovely. There was never any problems in her home, but she's gone into
hmm
this with this guy who was an absolute horrible person. And for her, that was like doubly shocking because she'd never experienced any kind
hmm
of or never seen because I don't know if you've ever seen people fighting in the street, right? I don't know, obviously with my career background, I've seen a lot of fighting.
hmm
So if it happens out when I'm out and about, I'm not really shocked because I've got like, oh right, and here we go, and I'll just like jump in kind of thing.
hmm
But for most people, that is actually a physical shock to the system, isn't it?
hmm
And I think that
Yeah.
plays, it's a trauma, and I think that plays out. So when people are dysregulated in their emotions, and I think abusive people, um, they're over love. They're at the beginning, they're love bombing at the beginning, and the expressions of jealousy that they tell you, I've never met anybody like you before,
mm
or you're not like other women, or
hmm
that you make me so. It's all you because of who
hmm
you are, what you
hmm
do. You make me jealous.
hmm
So it's like sort of reflecting that back onto their victim.
mm
And actually, they're just dysregulated in their emotions. And I think abusers know exactly what they're doing.
mm
I don't think it's a lack of control of their emotions. I think they're very much controlled because they can be out in the world, they can have jobs, they can go on
hmm
public transport, they can do
Yeah.
everything that
mm
everybody else does, but they choose to abuse in the home, or they choose
And
to abuse
mm,
in their relationship
mm,
when nobody else is looking.
yeah, because this is episode 8, and we're kind of going towards the worst types of abuse. I think we really need to emphasize that abusers are not um, lower class people.
No,
Abuses that come from all sides of the world, all shades, all colors, all
yeah, all
incomes,
financial backgrounds.
everywhere.
Like
Exactly. Uh,
the two guys that stick out the most in my mind, and I think I've said it before. One was a millionaire, businessman, very successful,
mm,
and one was at the other end of the socioeconomic scale,
mm,
had nout, and they were the same person.
yeah.
It was
Mm,
mad,
mm.
absolutely
And
like mad.
again, the abuse
They
happens.
behave. But there's a pattern, isn't there? We've talked about that pattern of abuse. And if it was not by choice, there wouldn't be a pattern, would there? We wouldn't be sitting in a circle of women who've survived talking
hmm
about the same type of behavior that has been perpetrated
hmm
on them. So it seems like they're actually they've been married to the same guy.
hmm
So it is a strategy.
Yeah,
It
and the
must
fact
be
that
exhausting to be
I
so
would
horrible
go
all the time.
even, I don't know if it's one step further, but if it wasn't a pattern, then if it was outside of their control, then it would happen everywhere. At work, in
Everywhere.
the street, at the
Yeah.
supermarket, and in the home. If it only happens in the home, then it means that the rest of the time they what can control it, so it's
Yeah.
controllable,
Of course.
so it's
So it's
organized.
absolutely a choice that they make when they're on a date with somebody, there's another thing that you need to know, like if you're out with somebody and you go out for dinner and they're mean to the waiters,
Mm.
run. Run. If they can be mean to people who are there, who are getting paid really low
Mm. Mm.
wages to serve them a meal and they're nasty, just
Mm.
run. I wouldn't even think, and I would be away in a heartbeat if I was on a
Mm.
date with somebody who was mean to the waiter.
Yeah.
I would just
My
leave.
grandfather
I wouldn't
was.
even explain anything. I'd just go, nope, I'll be out.
My grandfather
No.
was. um, every time. I remember that as a child, my father's father, we did not have much contact with him. They lived very far away, and my father had broken most of the communication with his family for obvious reasons. But actually, every time, like once every 2 years or so, we would go to a restaurant for New Year's Eve or whatever. Every time he was mean. And I could see both my father and my mother and myself feeling this, how can you do this? Why would you ever, Um, and I know
Yeah,
that, for my dad, he lived that as an emotional abuse situation for him. And I've seen my father eat raw food so as not to give it back to the waiter or complain or,
yeah.
in
Because
reaction to what his own father did. He was at the complete opposite, which was like,
yeah.
come
Oh
on, you
yeah,
don't
bless
have to.
him.
But yeah, and I think that you learn from your childhood. There's also ways to change your mind when you grow up. Yeah,
Yes,
so
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so many people I know who don't have contact with their family, their biological family,
mm,
or I'll keep that at a distance. And I think that's about safety as well.
mm,
I certainly know there are people in my family that I don't have any contact with unless I absolutely have to.
mm,
And that's for my mental well-being.
yeah,
And it's really hard. And I think because people like the whole Mother's Day thing, the whole,
mm,
oh, but it's your
mm,
mother. Like, yeah, but you didn't behave like one.
mm. Yeah,
Um,
no,
and I think
and I think
you have
that.
to value yourself. You have to value yourself. Like I said, I've said in an earlier episode, like if it was happening to somebody that you love, how would you feel
Mm,
about what was happening to them? And treat yourself like the person that you
mm,
know you deserve self-respect. You deserve self-esteem. You deserve to be able to express yourself without fear of rejection and being told that your emotions aren't relevant. And I feel sad. No, you don't. Well, actually, I
sorry,
do.
what? Actually, I
Like
do.
that,
Hmm.
when my dad died, I wasn't allowed to grieve.
Mm,
Once the funeral was done, that was it.
hmm.
And I wasn't allowed to mention it again.
Mm.
And that is another form of emotional abuse, isn't
Yeah,
it?
of course.
And I've actually, I didn't realize that that was a thing until much later when I started
Mm,
learning more about
mm,
things. But I was like, yeah, well, actually, yeah, that was me. That happened
yeah.
to me.
Mm.
And that wasn't
I'm
even why I
sad, don't
left
be a
him.
wuss. I'm sad, no, you're not. All these things. It's like,
Yeah,
no, no,
yeah,
no
yeah.
way. But yeah, it is a
But
part.
their emotions are because of you. So
Hmm.
you've got your emotions, but they criticize you for, oh, you're too soft, you're too hard,
Hmm.
you're too calm, you're too angry.
Hmm.
You're always too much or too little. You never, and that's what people need to understand. You cannot change that person. You cannot be a better partner. You cannot be a better wife, a better husband. If that person is an abusive person, there's nothing you can do within yourself because it's theirs to own,
Hmm. Yeah.
their
Yeah.
issues. So you can't be like too sad, you cry too much, too soppy, watching a sad film. Like, what I need, like the whole point of art is to move your emotions, isn't it?
Hmm.
Whether it's a painting or a film or a
Hmm.
statue, the whole point of it is to get the emotion. And they're telling you, oh, why are you crying at that film? And it's like, well, because it's a sad film and you're
Because it's
horrible.
sad
But
film. I cry at commercials, so
yeah,
I'm this person.
but
My
then their
husband does
emotions
make
are
a
on
little
you.
fun of me, but a little, the
Yeah.
reasonable amount of, oh, come on. This is a
Are
commercial
they?
for,
The Christmas commercials are meant to make you cry,
yeah, well,
aren't they? They go, oh, there's an orphan. There's always an
mm.
orphan.
There's
Oh my
an
God.
orphan, of course.
And it's like,
Um,
oh, there's a little
I want to
boy and he
make a
looks
little
nice.
tangent about emotions, one particular emotion, because it's a very fundamental one, anger. And it plays out in many places, and I have something against the way it's treated
Mm,
by the patriarchy, aka by Christian religion. It's part of the cardinal sins. It's the only emotion that is actually a cardinal sin. If you
anger.
read through the Bible, anger is a cardinal sin. Can you imagine? I mean, it's thing that, as all emotions, they come uncontrolled, then they invade you. That's been now recognized and discussed in various studies. We all agree emotions come and then they go. Now, the way you act upon emotions is something completely different, obviously, but the
Yeah,
actual emotion is only of its own volition. Now, what the Bible says is that this is a cardinal sin. So feeling it is a cardinal sin.
that's crazy.
That's
How can
crazy.
you,
That's
how, and do you know, sometimes if you're not angry, you must be crazy because why would you not be angry at genocide in Palestine?
yeah,
I feel
of
very,
course,
um, I'm raging about that and I feel
of
very
course.
powerless
Of course.
about
And
that.
yet
And
you
that
still do
powerlessness
not
makes
hit
me
any of your children, partners, friends over that. Because you can feel the rage, the anger, and not act in a violent way upon it. Anger
no,
is not violent in and of itself. And
yeah.
it's not a sin. It's just an emotion, just like the rest
Except the
of them.
Catholics say it's a sin.
Hmm. I just,
I didn't know
just
that, you
wanted to
know.
put
I
that out
thought it
there.
was a
Yeah,
Catholic.
it's one of the things that drives me cuckoo every time I think about it. It drives me even more angry.
So what is the solution then? Not get into the theology too much, but what is the solution if you're a
I
Catholic
don't know.
and you're feeling angry? What are you supposed to go and tell the priest that you're angry? I don't
Yeah,
know.
not feeling
Bless
it.
me,
Yeah,
Father, for I.
repent. Repent, I'm guessing.
Mm. The thing with a relationship with an abusive person is they blame their emotions on you. So I'm angry
Hmm.
because you did X, Y,
Because you
Z.
did this or that. Yeah. Or you said
I'm
this or that.
sad and it's your fault. You know, I'm jealous because everything you do makes me so jealous and don't look at that other person because and you their mindset is nuts because they judge you by their standards and their standards are
Mm-hmm.
really low. And that's where the jealousy comes in, isn't it? It's like they're jealous because they think you are going to go and sleep with somebody other than them. And the reason they think that is because that's their standard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, well, no, I got married. Like, when you get married to somebody, unless you're in an arrangement with that person where you go on
Yeah,
the
you
shag other
did.
people,
It's a commitment, right? You
you,
make a
you tend to
choice.
stick with the one person. And I don't ever intend to be intimate with anybody other than my husband. And so when you're in a relationship with an abusive person, it's like, why did you look at him? This is how many men are you talking to when you're at work all day? Who was that? You looked sideways at a man in the
Mm-hmm.
supermarket, and it's them, it's their issue,
Mm-hmm.
but they make their emotions your issue. That's
And
another big red flag.
it's even, if somebody actually looks sideways at you, it's still your fault.
Hey, and you have no control over that. And then you get it because somebody else looked at you. But actually, I like it when other women look at my husband because I think that's mine. That's mine.
You know,
You know,
I don't.
I like that other woman would be attractive. Otherwise, why would if he wasn't attractive, I wouldn't like to me. I wouldn't have married him. That's nuts.
No, but the idea that an abusive person would blame you because other people find you attractive is like, sorry, what? How can I,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And also,
And
there's
not
that
not to go
jealousy.
into more religion, but that's why we end up with women hidden under clothes that hide
Yeah.
the whole of them, right?
And also, I
Because
mean, really famous, successful women have a lot of them have been in relationship with abusive men who
mm,
they get this very famous, very beautiful, very successful woman, and they basically chip away at her self-esteem,
yeah,
and they're jealous because of her success, which is what
mm,
attracted to them in the first place. And they try and take that away. There's so many famous women out there.
yeah,
Um,
including the ones where the abusive husband appropriates their writings, or there's this French writer Colette. All of her work was actually written and published under her husband's name,
it's
and it's only
crazy.
after her death that we
I
realized
read
it was
something
her.
that really made me
Mm.
happy the other day. William Morris um, does
Hmm.
interior design, this famous
Hmm.
wallpaper
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
fabrics and stuff, William Morris. And I read something the other day, and actually it was Jane, it was his wife.
Oh, fuck. Can't
And
believe
also
it.
Charles René Mackintosh, where the house is in Glasgow.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and it was his wife and his sister who did the majority of the designing, but nobody's ever heard of them.
There's a movie called Big Eyes about a woman painter who every every one of her painting was stolen by her husband, and then he actually locked her because it started to sell. He locked her in the basement to
What was
paint.
her name?
I don't remember her name, but she
I
did
read
paint
that.
these characters with big eyes,
I
little
remember
girls
that.
with huge eyes. There's a movie which was shocking to me, but there seems to be a lot of those. I don't think I've ever heard of any reverse situation
No,
where a
no.
woman would
If
sell.
anybody can, please, if everybody knows of that, like
Yeah.
comment under here because I'd like to see that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I do see that men appropriate the thing, whatever
While
the
at the
thing is.
same time abusing that woman and
Mm,
making her feel small, because for a woman to be okay to live in a basement and paint day in, day out without her name being anywhere, she has to be in a special mindset that she has been put on,
yeah,
which is called abuse, basically.
yes. It, I was sort of wondering, like at what point, because a lot of people are in relationships with abusive people and they can't leave. They're either
Yeah.
locked in the basement or they can't leave because of finances and property and risk and all of that. At what point does that relationship, what point does it become hostage situation? Which is
It
something
is.
I'm going to ask the police actually. Because like
It
if
is.
you want to get away from somebody and you can't, and they're keeping you for whatever
Yeah,
reason,
that's kidnapping,
that's a
isn't it?
hostage situation, isn't it?
Hmm.
But nobody ever gets locked up for keeping somebody hostage for that in those scenarios. I wonder if we
No,
could do a test case and do a
that could
trial,
be
see if
fun.
see if the courts would see if we could get it to hold up in a court. Because a lot of women certainly are in a hostage situation because they don't have the means to go forward because they've given up their career and it's been a while since they had a job
Yeah, we've
because the
talked about the
agreement was that
financial
she would have the
abuse.
kids and he would go and work, do paid work while she stayed at home to do unpaid work, which he then says, well, you don't do anything, you don't make any contribution. Excuse me, mate. And she's staying at home to make sure your kids are fed and warm and clothed and they've got a roof that doesn't fall in,
Or
you
creating
know.
the piece of work of art that you then go and parade as your own, as we said, so,
Yeah.
basically.
So I wonder if we could get a hostage type situation, domestic abuse relationship through the court. That would throw a spanner in the works, wouldn't it?
Because it's really a situation of, this question that so many people ask, why doesn't she leave? Well, because she can't,
Because she can't.
as we've said in previous episodes, why doesn't he stop abusing
Mm.
her? It
It's much easier, isn't it? You just stop
maybe
doing twatful things and everything will be
maybe we
fine.
should, really focus on if we're going to be judging, how about judging him instead of her?
Always.
If we're going
Yeah,
to be
and then
judging.
it gets spun round so that when if she does manage to escape this abusive person and she's on her own with the kids, she's a single mother.
Mhm,
And that's like, oh, she's a single mother. Well, I tell you
mhm,
what, I was a single mum for a long time and they all went to university and they're all doing really well
mhm,
because they had hardly any fucking contact with their dick of a
mhm,
father.
mhm. Yeah, and
Because I
and
had to
they,
protect them. I had to
but
protect
also,
them.
it's about you didn't choose to be a single mother at any point. You chose to put yourself and your kids into safety. That's a
Yeah, that's
different
what that's the
situation.
point, isn't it? You put your
You did
children
not,
into
I
safety
did not.
because we said earlier in a previous episode, like it's about setting an example for the children because that is trying to break the cycle of abuse. So if a woman stays in a relationship where he's been abusive, she's putting the kids at risk. If you end up under the microscope of social services, that is the hardest place to be
Mm,
because you are failing to protect.
hmm.
But at the same time, if you leave, he's going to kill you all.
Hmm.
And then if you do leave and he doesn't kill you all, you're a single mum. And every single problem with any of your kids is because you're from a broken home.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's from a female perspective, it's lose, lose, lose.
Yeah.
But actually, I didn't care because I was like, yeah, because my mother said to me something like, who's going to take you on with this baggage? And she was calling my children baggage. And I was like, well, I'm out here. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Never see
And
you
and
again. Thank you
also,
very much. Yeah. But
maybe I
that's
don't
what
want to
people,
be.
that's like women, it's like if your child gets into trouble with the police, It's like, oh, it's because he's from a broken home.
mm,
Really?
mm. Yeah.
No.
But, may I ask a question, which is maybe we don't want to be taken on? Maybe we're
Yeah,
just,
I was
at
like,
some point, wait,
what
if you
makes you
manage to
think
get
I could
out,
possibly want like what? Yeah,
maybe I just
because
need,
that is the programming. It's like I was supposed to
of
get
course.
married, I was supposed to have a family, I was supposed to be married forever, Catholic
Hmm.
family, and I was supposed to do that thing.
Yeah,
And and then her assumption was, bless her, that I would simply get married again.
hmm
And
of
that's
course,
that
as soon
because
as
that was
possible.
her
But
scope
who
of
would take you,
understanding of the
for
world.
how many goats? This is like, it feels like this thing where, oh,
Yeah,
but she's now broken, so we'll pay less for her. Listen, I'm
sure.
not a piece
Yeah,
of
yeah.
furniture, right?
Yeah, yeah. They're a possession, but a less valuable possession because I'm
Yeah, but
tainted.
I'm purposefully bringing that back to these times where women were pieces of furniture, um, because it actually is the same now. It's just hidden under a varnish of
Yeah,
civilization. But
yeah,
basically, what we are told as women is the same: is, alone with a bunch of kids, you are worthless, you are failing, so basically the same stories.
yeah,
And we really need to stop. We really need to stop
yeah. I
these
agree.
patterns of the blaming and shaming, because for a woman who's already that deep into an abusive relationship, there are no good solutions.
No, no,
You
there
stay,
aren't.
you're
It's all
blamed, you
hard.
leave, you're blamed, you lose, lose, lose.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah. Um, what else do we want to talk about?
Making small things into a major crisis.
Oh, that's a good one.
Again, it's about dysregulation of the emotions, isn't it?
Mm,
So they want the drama. So if there's no drama, they'll make the drama and make something,
mhm,
anything to make an argument. It doesn't matter what. So you're planning a day. Maybe you're going to a wedding, for example, and on the morning of the wedding, that abusive person will create a problem
mhm,
that isn't a problem, that will disrupt, either you'll either not get to the wedding or it'll make your day shit.
mm, mhm,
And they do that. I posted something a little while ago about anniversaries, Christmases. A big one is actually the death of a parent. They will
mm,
use the death of a parent to create a crisis and have this big problem. And of course, as a culture, we're like, oh, their parent, their dad died or their mum died,
mhm,
and you feel really sorry. But when you see it as a pattern of behavior, it's like,
mhm,
really, you're trying that shit again?
mhm. Yeah.
So any special occasion, they want to spoil it because it's not about them.
Mm,
So there's that pattern of behavior around big days
mhm,
is real. Christmas is a biggie. New Year is a biggie for relationships between fathers and sons.
mm,
I remember that from my policing career. You would get a lot of domestic abuse calls, and it would be father-son
mm.
stuff on New
I
Year.
remember a few years back, my mom had an apartment and she wanted to rent a small apartment and she wanted to rent it. And we went to the real estate agent and she said, oh, we're gonna, no problem. This is all completely furnished. So we'll have no problem renting it in January. And I'm like, why January? And she says, oh, after people have spent 1 or 2 weeks together, the rate of separation and divorce
Huge.
goes, you know, to the roof.
Yeah,
And I'm like, sorry, what? So people who are supposedly a family or even a couple, when they are actually together, shit happens. And I'm like, okay, maybe they should not have been together. And it doesn't have to be an abusive relationship, but just the idea that when
yeah,
people who have agreed to live together actually are together for more than 2 hours a day, then they get a
yeah,
divorce. And I'm like,
yeah.
so
It's big.
I can
January
imagine
is
how
big.
much, if you're in an abusive relationship, this is even worse. The times where holidays or Christmas or even vacations, when people are, literally stuck together, and there's even more possibilities and time for the abuser to
I think
exert his control.
I think I said this before in a previous episode, but when the COVID pandemic happened
Mm,
and everybody got locked in, I nearly had a nervous breakdown
mm,
because I was imagining all of those kids in not being able to go to school where school is their haven.
mm.
And
Yeah,
that nearly broke me.
yeah.
And I remember because I knew it was coming because I've got a friend who lives in Italy, and Italy had it really bad. And
Hmm.
we got it worse in the UK. It was just
Mm,
horrendous. But the thought of being locked in and not being able to go anywhere, and you're living with this person
mm-hmm.
is it just terrified me.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
thought, well, I could have killed Boris Johnson when he said, because Sweden didn't go into lockdown,
Mm,
they just rode it out.
mm, mm. We
But
did.
yeah,
In
horrific.
France, we did, and I was a teacher at the time. And I know that my Zoom teaching, my Zoom classrooms, which I actually maintained all during lockdown, both lockdowns, because we had two of them. And I actually gave more Zoom classes than I actually would have given real life classes because the kids needed it. It was
Yeah,
like I was supposed to be teaching English. I wasn't teaching anything. We were just having conversations. But the
yeah,
fact that these kids could be in a place with another adult having, and we were talking about, yeah, of course, Harry Potter, whatever I could find that was slightly related to English teaching, but that would be fun to them. Um,
yeah,
and they could argue to their parents, and some of them told me so, that they were working so that
yeah,
they could have access to the computer.
yeah. And also access to that outside world
Yeah. Hmm.
that could hear what was going
Hmm.
on the other side of the
Hmm.
computer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a
And we
safety measure.
Yeah. Well, actually, during that time, I had to report, I think, four families
Wow.
to the police because
Yeah.
I could
Can
hear
you,
also what was going on. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's,
and it was
and
like,
that's, I mean, can you imagine that just multiplied across the
yeah,
whole planet? It was
hmm,
just,
yeah, because I live, in a tiny remote place in France. So, um,
yeah. Oh my God.
yeah.
You have
So,
to do, it's real.
that's why it's so important to see the red flags early, 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 as early as possible, right? I
Yeah.
also want to ask you a question, and I think this will be my last one for this episode, because I think we need to make sure that this is said. So I'm going to ask it like I didn't know the answer. Can someone with a past abusive behavior change?
I think so if they get support. I do. And
But,
I've seen it
just,
because years ago, I don't think you can do it without support. I don't think you just wake up one morning and go, I'm not going to do that anymore. I think that, first of all, there has to be some kind of consequence to your behavior. And we see that there is very little consequence to
what I was going to
this.
say is actually the first question that I should ask that is, does a person with an abusive sorry, comportment, how do you say, with that is abusive, want to change?
Not if they don't have to. If they don't have to. And I used to work on a perpetrator program.
Mm,
So they set up, it was really good. I was in the right place at the right time. But at the time, I was like, I don't want to do this job. Because I got into this job because a pregnant policewoman was having a difficult pregnancy. And you're going to do that job while she's not well. And I was like, I don't want to do it. But then
mm,
because of who I am, I was like, oh, I'll just take a full dive in. Um, so I worked on a perpetrator program where there was workers with the victims, workers with perpetrators, and workers with the children. They had a children's worker as well, which was like new at that time. And I got to do the perpetrator program. And now this was court ordered perpetrator program. So
mhm,
these guys had been to court, and as a consequence of being in court, they were told you have to do this course. And it was quite a
mhm,
long course. I think it might have been about 20 weeks.
mm,
And it was like you have to do this course. And if you don't do it, you'll either go to jail
mm,
or you'll never see your kids again because we will
mm,
make sure that you have no contact
mhm,
with your kids. And in about week 8, I mean, there were men who were on that, but it was men's course for men. There were men on that course who, even after 20 weeks, were still horrible people
Mm,
and weren't going to change their behavior. But they're usually in about week 8, some of them men, the light bulb would come on,
mm-hmm,
and they would suddenly realize how absolutely vile their behavior was.
mm-hmm.
And for them,
Cool.
in that moment of realization, you could literally, honestly, sorry, you could literally see it happen
Mm,
because something flipped,
mm,
something switched in their brain. And suddenly you had this traumatized man who had the realization how much trauma they'd inflicted on other
mm-hmm.
people.
Yeah.
And you had to make sure that you
Must be
had
an
support in place
incredibly
for that.
hard wake-up call.
Horrible, but also amazing. So I
Mm,
have
yeah.
literally seen it happen.
Yeah.
Yes, there can be rehabilitation, but I
But I
think it
want to,
has to
yeah,
be
I just want to
supported.
one last time talk to the victim in that situation and remind them that they cannot be the agent of change for their
No,
perpetrator.
no,
So oh, but he said it was the last time.
no.
This is bullshit.
Bullshit.
They need
Yeah,
support,
yeah.
exterior support.
Yeah,
They need,
professional.
as you noted, to be willing to an extent.
Sure.
Um, but do not ever believe that you can change them if you're a
Never.
victim and they're a
No.
perpetrator, because
And
this is the
also,
place where you get stuck deeper and deeper. And that's
yeah,
where we
I've
also
also
repeat, leave
encountered
after the
women who
first
have,
lie.
I've encountered women who've said, oh, my husband is on a perpetrator program. So he's telling her he's on a perpetrator, and he wasn't. So they stayed in the relationship because they thought they were seeing
Hmm, hmm,
some person somewhere. And I'm like,
hmm,
well, he's not,
hmm.
because that thing doesn't
Yeah.
exist.
Mm, yeah.
So
So,
using perpetrator program is another way to perpetrate abuse.
mhm. So yeah, uh, just I'm so glad that actually there are some perpetrator programs. I'm so glad that actually some men can have this light bulb moment and realize and change their behaviors. But please, if you're a victim, do not think that you are going to be the person that is going to make them change. This is not about it. And if you're, I think you're getting deeper and deeper into the relationship if you believe that you can make them change. Um,
And
and
we're kind of programmed to go, oh, we'll give him another chance.
mhm,
No,
mm, mm. No,
nope.
as we said previously, leave after the first lie.
Yeah, because it's not the first lie.
No, and it's usually possible still to leave at that time.
Yeah,
Uh,
because
as
that'll
we,
happen really early on.
yeah, as
It'll
we've
happen in the
repeatedly
first few
said,
weeks.
as we've repeatedly said, do not leave if it's not safe for you. But
Yeah, yeah.
if you can early enough realize, then well, thank you very much. Another
Thank you.
amazing episode. So this we need to have another one, obviously. So if you're listening to this, there is another episode coming. If you want to grab a copy of Ree's book, Be Kind, No Excuses, you will find every another link below or around this video or audio, wherever you're listening. You can also, who said, attend the WOW event at the end of June, at
Yeah.
least June 2026, because I don't know who and when is listening.
It's always the last weekend in June. And I've
Yeah.
already got plans in place for 2027. So it is definitely happening in 2027,
Okay.
unless I die.
Oh no, please don't. Please
Oh, you
don't die.
should.
And yeah, so you'll find all any and all references and links to Ree's website and the rest below this video. Thank you very much, Ree, for coming.
Thank
Um,
you.
and thank you very much to all of you for listening. And we will see you one last time soon. I don't know exactly when. Bye for now.